Strong consumers can make informed decisions. They can stand up for their rights and their interests. But how do we empower consumers, especially in this digital age? An age that poses new questions. Are consumers masters of their own data? Do they understand what happens online? And are they able to identify which information they can trust? But it also provides new opportunities, new ways of connecting people, new ways of educating people, new ways for transparency, and new ways to create a dialogue between consumers and all the other stakeholders. This is why Euroconsumers and Google have joined forces to create a platform that enables consumers to enter in this dialogue, that identifies these challenges, and that offers some real solutions to these challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Consumer Empowerment Project launch party.
The CEP is the Consumer Empowerment Project, an initiative to promote open dialogue. Dialogue between consumer organizations, civil society and industry related to issues affecting consumers.
We need to listen to consumers all around the world, and I'm so delighted that we've got this partnership with Euroconsumers, where we're going to build a new online space to engage in discussions on topics like consumer protection, digital responsibility, digital transformation and sustainability.
We are at a turning point. The European Union will draft soon the rules that will regulate the digital markets for the next 20 years, as it was the case for the e-commerce directive 20 years ago. The digital ecosystem must be rebalanced by putting the consumers at the center, while at the same time avoiding ideological crusades.
The Consumer Empowerment Project is looking for the most diverse partners to help us understand what's on the minds of consumers. Anyone who cares about how consumers can be empowered and protected, and the goal is to build a better experience online for everyone.
We believe in dialogue with responsible and relevant market players and other stakeholders that bring tangible benefits to consumers.
One of the flagship initiatives of the Consumer Empowerment Project is the Consumer Leadership Academy, which is a one-week course designed to stimulate informed discussion about all aspects of policies regarding the future of consumerism.
And I truly believe that interesting ideas can emerge from that kind of dialogue.
Whether it is getting information on your rights when you're online, whether it is engaging with experts or tools and training, the Consumer Empowerment Project is there to help everyone, to help people make the most of the digital world.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and to celebrate the launch of this platform, we have brought together some of the founders and also some key stakeholders to have some discussion. What are these challenges? What can we do to empower consumers? And what is the role of digitalization? And we also hope to hear your voices, whether you're at home or here in beautiful sunny Rome. If you're at home, next to the video player, you find a little screen where polls will appear to you, and you can ask questions or post some comments. If you don't see the screen, you might have to maximize your browser window. If you still don't see it, below the video player, there's the button chat or poll questions. If you ask that live chat, if you ask that, hit that button, the pop-up will appear, but probably if you maximize your screen, you'll also see it. And the first question we would like to ask all of you is, why is such a cross-stakeholder dialogue, a dialogue where everybody can talk to each other? Why is it so important? And we put some things here like consumer rights, transparency, better services, inclusivity, and responsible choices. And you have the near impossible task to rank them to the one and put on top the one you think, well, this is the most relevant, this is really going to be helped with a proper cross-stakeholder dialogue. So in the video player to your right, you find this screen. If you can't see it, hit the button live chat just below the video player. And of course, the people here in the audience, you can use your phone for that. Yeah, we see the first answer coming through. So we see responsible choices is now on top, followed by consumer rights, transparency, better services, and inclusivity. So especially for responsible choices you think that a cross-stakeholder dialogue could really make a difference? Well, we're going to ask this to our speakers in the keynote panel and also the panels we have after that, but we also posed this question to the European Commissioner for Justice. We went to Brussels and asked him, what are your plans to safeguard the rights of consumers, but also what do you think are the benefits of a stakeholder dialogue? And this is what he had to say.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for joining us to talk about the Consumer Empowerment Project. As you know, my name is Katrina Sickle because we did meet earlier this year at the Consumer Summit, so a very warm welcome.
Thank you very much, and hello to everyone. Hello to you, Katrina, and I'm very pleased to be with you today to launch the Consumer Empowerment Project. Indeed, I can only be delighted to see the development of new initiatives in the field of consumer protection.
So we're going to talk a little bit about this initiative. Now, as you well know, it is ostensibly about establishing an open dialogue between consumer organisations, civil society and industry on how to better empower consumers. So the obvious first question is, how do you think these kinds of initiatives and perhaps more generally voluntary commitments, those that go beyond the legal obligations, can contribute to providing a safer environment for consumers, particularly in the digital realm?
I firmly believe that we need different tools to fully empower consumers. We need the right legislative environment as a sound basis, strong consumer organizations and civil society. It's very important to work with all, but also the businesses that are willing to go beyond the legal requirements and various public and private actors that are engaged to improve consumer awareness and education. And the new consumer agenda, which captures my vision for consumer policy, also formally recognizes the power of dialogue between industry, consumer organizations and civil society. To give you an example, we have set up the Consumer Policy Advisory Group, and this group meets twice a year to discuss progress and reflect on priorities in the year ahead. We also organized the European Consumer Summit. You were there in Strasbourg for the last one. And every year we organize this to bring all stakeholders together for targeted discussions on the future of consumer policy. And finally, regular consumer dialogues are held in the member states. These are a real opportunity to engage with all stakeholders and with the general public in every member state. I took part in different dialogues at the national level with the minister in charge and with the civil society. And in digital area, the new consumer agenda mentions the importance of cooperation between competent authorities and key stakeholders such as platforms, business associations, advertisers and consumer organizations again, to fight against consumer scams, deceptive marketing techniques and fraud in online shopping. To put this into practice, we have launched the Product Safety Pledge, where companies can commit themselves in a voluntary manner to increase the safety of products sold online. In 2018, with the previous Commission, it started with 4 online marketplaces: AliExpress, Amazon, eBay and Rakuten France. Today, 11 marketplaces are taking part in our Product Safety Pledge. In the last reporting period, 97% of products identified through public recall websites, such as EU Safety Gate, were removed within 2 working days. This shows the power of voluntary cooperation mechanism, allowing and encouraging companies to go beyond what is required from them by legislation. So it's very important to have a dialogue, but to organize also some voluntary commitments of companies going further than all legislative proposals or all legislative instruments.
Thank you, and you're doing such a splendid job of talking to me live and talking to an audience that that is also going to be present at this event, so thank you so very much for that. Now, many of the Commission's recent legislative initiatives are aimed at ensuring an open and a contestable digital market. So if you had to pinpoint the role that consumer organisations can play in facilitating this process even before the new laws come into effect, what would you propose?
But we try to work all the time with the consumer organizations and certainly with the organization at the urban level, BUG, when we have to discuss about one of another proposal. And the proposal of the Commission on the Digital Markets Act is indeed one of the key legislative initiatives under the European Digital Strategy of March 2020, and among the first ones where there is a political agreement. This reflects its political importance as part of the Commission's efforts to make the market in the digital sector fairer, more open and contestable. The Digital Markets Act aims to increase this fairness by imposing certain ex-ante requirements on gatekeepers, that is, providers of core platform services in the digital sector, who play, you know, a gatekeeping role in certain digital markets. These are all very necessary developments considering the rapid pace of change in digital markets. The requirements of gatekeepers will ensure fairness for respect to business users of the core platform service in question, but they will also lead to benefits for consumers due to greater competition and increased consumer choice. In the meantime, voluntary commitments again from companies are already making a big difference to improve the protection of consumers in the digital environment. These commitments allow us to reach results already before the legislation is catching up with these new developments, and they will continue to play an important role, because it's possible to go further than the actual legislation and to prepare the next one. So I want to make the product safety pledge bigger and better with the wider support and creative ideas. I was very pleased to follow the intense discussions during the first annual digital event and during the Consumer Summit again earlier this year on the extension of the product safety pledge. And I've tried to ask to all the member states to come with new companies able to take part in such a pledge. We will continue these discussions and reflection and also assess how could consumer organizations contribute to our shared objective. Consumer organizations, in fact, in any case, have a vital role to play by monitoring the situation, collecting feedback and experiences from consumers, and sharing the information with the Commission. In addition to the Digital Markets Act and Digital Services Act, the Commission committed in the consumer agenda to analyze whether any further legislative or non-legislative action is necessary to ensure more online fairness. Several steps have already been taken, and firstly, the Commission is gathering evidence on emerging unfair practices in the digital environment, and we have contracted a behavioral study that examines the prevalence of impact of unfair practices such as dark patterns and manipulative personalization. The results of the study are due in spring 2022, so it's very soon. Secondly, the Commission has delivered and published new guidance documents on key consumer law instruments: Unfair Commercial Practices Directive, Consumer Rights Directive, or Price Indication Directive at the end of last year, 2021. The guidance include updated interpretations and case law examples regarding important online fairness topics such as, again, consumer reviews, transparency of search results, obligations for online marketplace, influencer marketing, dark patterns, consumer lock-in, and more. Finally, the Commission will soon launch broader reflections on possible components of future initiatives, and we will aim to gather ideas from a wide range of stakeholders, and we count on the involvement and active contribution of, again, the consumer organization in this new work strand. And we are looking forward to the exchange of views about that. I will say that it's not only the preparation of new legislation that is very important to receive feedback from the consumer organizations. It's also very important to continue to work to them when we have a concrete issue or concrete problems. I want just to mention, to conclude, the long discussions that we have had with the consumer organization about the package travel directive during the pandemic. You know that we have had many cancellations of flights, many cancellations of travels, and it was very important to put together all the stakeholders, not only the consumer organization, the industry, the tour operators, the airlines company, to see how it's possible to try to solve the issue and not just to discuss separately with one and the other. And we'll continue, and you have seen that in Strasbourg in the Consumer Summit. We try to put together all the actors, not to have separate discussions with the different partners, but to try to reach the same goals together. And that's the main issue. And the reason why a very good involvement of the consumer organization is very important, but some voluntary commitments coming from the businesses is also very important. And at the end, of course, on such a basis, if it's needed, we propose some legislations. And thanks for this opportunity to present to you some proposals of new legislative instruments that we have put on the table in the last weeks or months, but also some that we are preparing for the next months.
Thank you. And thank you also just for coming back there and so clearly stressing the importance of getting all of those different stakeholders around the table, because, as you well know, at the heart of the Consumer Empowerment Project, and I'm just reading because they are very specific words, is really to create a trusted environment for open and constructive dialogue between all those relevant stakeholders. So thank you for circling back to that. It really has been a pleasure to see you again. I hope that you might be able to catch some of the event when it takes place next week, and good luck with, well, this plethora of work that you have on your plate. Thank you so very much for being.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. So a lot is happening, a lot of legislation is coming to us, but dialogue between all the stakeholders is crucial in drafting this legislation and also in follow-up on that. So to talk about how we're going to do that, we're going to invite the key partners of Google and Euroconsumers to the stage, and we're very honored to have him as our guest, the Minister for Technological Innovation and Digital Transition of Italy, Vittorio Colau, Matt Britton, and Ivan Mechels. Yes, gentlemen, it's an honor to have you here. Mr. Colau, you're the Minister of Technological Innovation and Digital Transition in Italy. When we think of all the things that are happening in that field, why is it so important to have this cross-stakeholder dialogue between all these partners, and how is it going to help the consumers?
Well, first of all, I think that saying why is it going to be necessary to have this dialogue is almost like a truism. I think we all know that it's necessary, as the Commissioner said. If you want to find solutions which are balanced and make sense for everybody, dialogue is the only. It says here, the power of dialogue is incredible. And to be honest, I don't think it's worth really discussing too much why we need the dialogue, because we all know it's necessary. The two important points are to discuss dialogue with which objective, and also what could each of the three parties bring to this dialogue to make this time the dialogue very powerful, not just the multilateral thing and so on. And here I will give two quick answers. The first one is that despite what is written, we are here to help to co-create a better consumer environment. I would say we are here to design fair and equitable societies. I think the digital transition is changing completely the way we will and our children will live. This is testing a lot of established rules, established norms, established regulations. We are here, yes, to create a better consumer environment, but I would say in a broader way, we are here to design societies that can work and can be fair. And this is the real important thing.
And fairness is not necessarily easy in a digital world, because we're seeing a digital divide where some people are empowered to know exactly what they can get and know their way on the internet, and some people have difficulties choosing the right information or can be easily deceived. What can we do to narrow the digital divide?
And here comes the second part of my answer, which is what should we do? I think we, the three parties represented here, the digital players, the institutions, and consumers represented, should a little bit change the way we interact. I think each of us can improve, given the speed of the evolution of technology and the speed of change. We can really change a little bit of what has been the established way of working. And I would suggest maybe three things, starting from us, because we should definitely as institutions be faster and be a little bit less strict ideologically on replicating established ways of thinking. We should understand more the technology implications of what we are saying. Sometimes the transposition is simple, sometimes it's complicated. We should do that. You guys, I think a little bit what the commissioner again was calling, you might want to be sometimes a bit less confrontational and a little bit more early adopters of change. Now we have DMA, DSA. Adopt it quickly. Also because the quicker you adopt it, the easier it will be to find the things that don't work and to change and consumers, I think, as I said, I think you guys are doing a tremendous job in defending rights and principles. Make a little bit a longer term effort, think about the fairness of markets, think about innovation, think about competition, how to preserve things that in the short term consumers might not necessarily be very sensitive to, but they are essential for the long-term health of the society. So each of us should do a step out of our normal behavior.
Well, this definitely calls for a reaction from the two of you. But first, what I got a little bit from Commissioner Reinders is that he says it's the task of us Commission to make sure a proper dialogue is happening, and in case that doesn't happen properly, then we will come forward with regulation. Is that a good method?
Yeah, I think it's what I said. If we were a little bit more responsive and technology savvy, if they were a little bit more open to understand that there are other objectives, and consumers thought not only at short-term benefit, but also long-term balance, fair representation, competition, innovation, all together we might find solutions. And if they're not perfect, fine, we can change them, as long as the process is not a 7 years process, because then nobody's willing to.
It takes much too long.
It's a completely different way of thinking, which is consistent with digital speed, which, as we know, is very high.
Yeah, it changes. Matt Britton, you're the president of Europe, the Middle East and Africa for Google. Yeah, you have to sometimes be a little bit less confrontational.
Well, I think
I was not talking about them. In general, the industry.
I hope the minister was not being personal, but look,
no,
I
wasn't.
You're talking about quite often young companies that have grown very fast and haven't got the years of regulatory connections that some other industries have. So we've had to learn which rooms we need to be kind of reaching and which conversations to be having. But if I also to take a step back and comment on some of what the minister said there, you know, when you're online, you want to be safe and you want to be in control. And we were working with a rule book that was 20 years old, and yet we're using tools like Google Translate or social media, the things we have in our pockets that were not conceived of 20 years ago. So we all need an updated rule book. But the technology is moving so fast, and consumer adoption of the technology is moving in rapid and sometimes unpredictable ways. A rule book's not good enough, it's going to be too slow. And that's where this point comes in, of like, we have to start to engage much more in a constructive way, and I very strongly feel that.
Is it possible to have a dialogue following the technology and maybe even a legislative framework following, which obviously is going to take, well, maybe 1 year less, but it's going to take time? Technology is changing so rapidly.
Yeah, but I'm inspired by, you know, let's look at the pandemic, right? So the pandemic saw tech acceleration. huge adoption of technology. It's obviously central, as you said, not just to information, to shopping, to entertainment, to health. It's fundamental. It's obviously the case. I think there are examples where the combination of a regulatory framework and then, as the Commissioner was saying, voluntary codes of practice. We were involved, personally, I was involved in signing up to a code of practice around misinformation online with the EU about 6 or 7 years ago. It's been really helpful. It defines not what's illegal, but like how do you think about the principles of what's responsible? And that's what the Digital Services Act is aiming to do for large online platforms. So I think there's a huge opportunity there. And so you take the example of the pandemic, take the example of something like climate change. It's obvious that you need governments, companies, and communities to work together. And I want to talk, for a moment about Euroconsumers and the role there. Consumer associations and protecting consumers, really, really important. Consumers themselves should not have to worry about the technical complexities of the tools they're using. But these kind of bodies can make a difference, and I really value the partnership we're launching today, and I hope that many more consumer associations and companies will come on board, because this dialogue is important. The research that we do together, the tools that we can build, the training, the expertise that we can bring together, that's going to help us. At Google, our mission is to build tools that work for everyone, to put the user first, but it's also going to help policymakers to see what is on the minds of consumers and what's not working. So I think it's a really vital step.
And of course, one role that you have in this project is to be on the, let's say, producer side of it, but you're also really focused on empowering consumers to be digital able and to have them to have their voices heard. In what way do you do that at Google?
Well, so the most powerful thing we can do at Google for consumers is give them access to information in an easy way. And so it's vital to do that. Let me just talk about something that's personally important, but I think really important for all of us at the moment, sustainability. You want to be able to make more sustainable choices. We know from research that 70% of consumers are fearful or very concerned about climate change around the world. And at Google, we set out with a pledge to try to help 1 billion people make more sustainable choices over a 2-year period, and we're halfway through that now. So things like eco-friendly routing on Google Maps. We want to default to the eco-friendly route unless there's a big time difference, in which case we give you the 2 choices. On flights, when you're searching for a flight now, thanks to the EU Commission, thanks to the European Environment Agency, every time you search for a flight now on Google, you see not just the airline and the availability and the cost, you also see the emissions data from that authoritative source, so you can make more informed choices. Hotels. We work with the Global Sustainable Tourism Council so that you can see hotels which have environmentally friendly practices. And there's an opportunity for us to think to do much more in this area. Euroconsumers and others working on things like energy auctions, like we're in an energy crisis now. So those are some of the ways I think we're really trying to see what consumers care about, pay attention to that and help. Well, we can't do that on our own. We need to do it with others who are real experts, and we need to do it in combination with a legal framework that is clear on how you bring innovation in a responsible way.
You have a user-first policy. How can I, as a user, well, first of all, see that, but also how can I basically control it? How can I know that I'm user-first and it's not just a nice slogan?
So everything at Google we build with a view to give users transparency and control. So actually in Munich, in the heart of Europe, we built our safety engineering center for users. So anytime you access a Google service, if you have a Google account, it's built by the team in Munich, by our Germans. And it allows you to control the information you choose to share with us in our services. Or we've had for over 10 years Google Takeout. It allows you to extract your data from Google products easily into a format that could be put into other competitors' products, whether that's Gmail or Drive or YouTube. So these things, I think, really help people to have control and have transparency.
If you're completely honest, would you also have implemented those measures if there wasn't the looming danger of regulation?
Well, look, Google Takeout was built in 11, 12 years ago. There was no kind of thought of regulation there. Why did we build it? Because, the reason I've been at Google for 15 years, I believe in these values, but, we want consumers to be in control and to have choice. And we believe that our engineers have to work harder because they know that somebody can take their data away to put it on a better service. So it increases competition. So it was done, from our point of view, without the threat of regulation. Equally, though, we feel the responsibility that comes with having the scale and popularity that our products have. And we need clarity from policymakers on how we need to operate today. And things like the responsibility when you're operating a property like YouTube of what you should be doing on content policy. How can we be transparent to show regulators we're being responsible? It's really important to have rules of the road that are set not by the platforms, but by the policymakers.
Ivan Mechels, you're the CEO of Euroconsumers. You bind together different consumer organizations in several countries, representing 1.5 million consumers. This is a project long in the making. Are you proud today?
Sure, I'm definitely proud today. If you think back, we have a robust history as consumer organizations. We were founded in the 60s of the last century, and we were pioneers at that time, bringing comparative testing, naming companies, ranking companies also for products, and later also for services. So yes, I'm proud today because I think we are again pioneers today in giving this chance to dialogue, open dialogue with market players, relevant market players, also global market players, and to bring innovative or a new dimension to innovative consumerism, I would say.
Because both the Commissioner and the Minister expect a lot from you. Are you up for the task?
They expect a lot from us, but we're used to that. We are, and we remain an independent consumer organization. Independency is key for us, of course, in testing, in surveys, in advocacy, in everything we do. And we will remain like that. We will keep on pushing, advocating for trustworthy legal frameworks, whether it be national or European. We will continue to do that, and we will continue also to go to court when there are manifest consumer infringements. Of course, that is key. Otherwise, we would not be reliable anymore. But I would paraphrase John Lennon: give dialogue a chance. Peace also, eh? Peace. But give dialogue a chance, because we believe firmly that we can bring new value, tangible benefits to consumers. And that's where it is all about. It's about bringing these benefits for consumers, assisting them in their daily lives, improving and being their daily assistant.
Yeah. Minister, the digitalization also has a huge implication for the service you as a government offer to your citizens. Are you on the right track to really make the lives of citizens better through digital services from the government?
If I compare our situation today to what Google is capable of delivering, we are really behind. But it's good to have good example. In reality, I think this country is moving faster than what most people think. The cornerstone, or what we think we should build on, is digital identity, and this country has already almost half of the population on digital identity. There is a European vision for having a European digital identity system, which I think would be, again, another cornerstone of the big European, and ADAS is one of the other big legislations that have to take place. We will develop a lot in the area of digital services. I don't think there will be a lot of concerns on the consumer side. If anything, you should kick us to go faster and to do more and to do better. So I need support for what we are doing in order to have, the similar speed or at least a comparable speed to what the private sector has. The real thing is competencies, is digital competencies. So if you ask me what's the most difficult thing, and I just had a meeting this morning, is we have part of the recovery funds allocation into competencies. We need to be sure that we allocate money and effort to bring up the digital competencies, not just of the sophisticated users who don't need that, but of everybody in the country. We have money for that, we have initiatives. If anything, there is a little bit shortage of good trainers, good people who are capable of teaching. And again, we will ask everybody, national, international, private, public, and so on, to contribute starting next week to the thinking on how to deploy this money. I think it's a general problem, not just of Italy. It's something which is a concern of the Commission and there is a broader effort led by the President herself to lift the digital competencies of the continent in, again, a fair way across all segments of the population.
We're going to talk in the last panel, we're going to even talk more about the role of education.
Yeah.
Is there a difference if we talk about consumers and citizens? Or is it roughly the same when it goes to digital services?
Well, for me, now it's the same. When I was, in the private sector, there was a difference. But for me now, it's the same. We care about citizens, and citizens have different incarnations, one of which is consumers. But, we look at the same privacy protections, we look at the same safety safeguards. I mean, at the end of the day, for us, it is the same. It is a little bit more difficult because, of course, when you think about consumers, you can select segments, and you can say, I do this for this, this for that, this for that. We don't have that luxury. When we do something, it must work for 100% of the population. Doesn't matter where they are, what's their level of skill, whether they want or don't want to be reached digitally. So now, for example, we are introducing digital domicile. Digital domicile looks like an easy thing. You say, okay, what's the point? Just elect a digital domicile. No. You need to think about everybody. And so it's a complicated, it's more complicated.
More complicated. When we talk about digitalization, often we talk about data.
Yeah.
On the one hand, data enables so much new services of things that we don't even know about. On the other hand, if it's not in my hands anymore, it provides a big danger. Is data going to be the topic to talk about in the coming years?
Yes, but yes, data is the topic we need to discuss. But please, let's not have only this negative, threat-oriented, danger-oriented discussion which says, oh my God, horrible things can happen. Let's look also at the opportunity coming from data. Opportunity of creating new services, opportunity of improving how government gives money, opportunity in deciding how to manage the environment, how to manage, So we tend to worry a lot for many. I will not go there because it's very political, for many reasons about data and data control. Let's also look at how to create a data environment which has, at the same time, the safeguards and the protections that we want, but also the ability, think of health. We are doing health now. One of the biggest things we're doing is health data. Health is, it's obviously that it's very personal and there are safeguard needs, but there's also huge potential there if we treat data in the right way. We were discussing with Matt just before. So let's look at the opportunities also coming from this, not just the threats. Safeguards, yes, but threats, not only threats.
Let's look at it. We're going to start a project today, and it's just to start because many more organizations probably will join. And I asked the organization, when is the project going to end? They say, it's an open-end project. If you could choose one thing that you hope that in the coming time will help through this platform, what would it be?
I dream of this platform to be open. It is open. It is open to us, consumers, but it is open also to other industries. I'm very happy, I was able to talk beforehand with Matt, his openness towards working on sustainability, but also working on domains like energy transition. This is concerning people today. Will they be able to pay their bills, their energy bills? Food prices raise. We have soaring energy prices. We are able to give answers. We have expertise and experience in, for instance, organizing collective purchases in energy. We can do all that together. But that is what it is all about. Together we can. Together in dialogue we can, and we open up to other industries in that platform. Industries, but also civil society. We welcome here also partners from civil society, whether it be environmental organizations or senior people organizations. So that's what I want to stress.
Exactly how you can join the platform. Wonderful. And Mr. Britton, when has the platform been a success?
I think, well, the first thing I'd say is, you look at us three and you see somebody who talks about consumers, citizens and users. And to misquote John Lennon, imagine they were all people, right? Actually, I've been thinking about this for a long time. But actually, I think success for the platform is that it's about people. People living in a world that has the benefits of everything that digital can bring to it. And I agree completely with the dialogue there. data is not a bad thing. Data is not oil. There are no more dinosaurs dying creating oil, right? So data is something that can be oxygen for creativity, for industry, for education, for health, all of these areas. And I think one of the successes for me of the platform would be, it's a place where we can engage as people, thinking about how we can make the most of humanity in a world with all these incredible new digital tools. It needs to be done fairly. We need to have independence, because we're partnering on this platform doesn't mean to say that, Euroconsumers will remain super independent. Government will obviously be independent of business, but you can be independent and disagree, but still have dialogue, and that's the opportunity.
Well, I'm going to wish you a lot of success for this platform with a nice dialogue, and hopefully it goes with a lot of Beetle quotes. Thank you so much to our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. For the data is not oil, because it's one of the most absurd things that I have seen.
And that's my microphone going. Let's have we wanted to go a little bit deeper into this discussion, so we invited a few stakeholders together with our founding partners to discuss more about some of the challenges that are coming. And the first one we want to talk about is the trends and key challenges in consumer protection in this digital age. May I get a round of applause for Giorgia Albertino, Els Bruggeman, Antonio Nikita, and joining us remotely, Brando Benifei. Yeah, Giorgia Albertino, you are the Senior Director at Google for Government Affairs and Public Policy in Southern Europe. The platform consists of lots of different projects. One of them is the Consumer Index. It's an index to measure the impact of digitalization on consumers. What does it do, and most of all, how does it help us consumers?
So the Consumer Empowerment Index started from one idea that has been also shared here by people that spoke before us, is if you want to plan for long term, you need to understand what consumers, citizens, users, this is the same thing, wants in the long term. And how do you do that? Well, at Euroconsumer and Google together thought that data-driven information are what is needed. So this consumer index is aimed at first understanding how people, how citizens are using digital tools and what are the tools that are very useful for them or the most useful for them. And then from that is identifying what are, of course, the opportunities, but if you want also the gaps. So what are, if you want, the risks and the opportunities that consumers see, and at that point, and this is the most important point, after the index is finalized, what do you do with this data? You take action. So the usefulness of the index is that it's providing, I hope, raw materials that will allow Euroconsumer, Google, and all the partners to take action. And action is training, if training are needed, or change the product if there is an issue for a certain domain. So I think that the beauty of this is that it listens to people. It represents as a picture what people think about, digital tools, but also then take actions.
Yes. Els Bruggeman, you're the head of policy and enforcement at Euroconsumers. Yeah. Do you agree? Is this the main ingredient of the index?
Absolutely. I'd like to say we're particularly proud that exactly this index is part of the CEP project, because it really goes to the heart of what we do also at Euroconsumers. There's an old saying, but since we're in ancient Rome, I'm very comfortable with sharing it. They always say, to measure is to know. And this is exactly what we do. Also at Euroconsumers, we always start from the science, from the data, of a profound knowledge of what consumers want and need. So if you really want to empower consumers in the digital environment, you first need to know what kind of tools are they using, what kind of online services are they using, and are they happy about it? Is it really helping them? Is it really is it really empowering them? And we will do this in many consumer areas, going from housing, mobility, like Giorgia explained. But maybe I'm particularly excited about also getting to know what consumers really need to make more sustainable choices. It was mentioned also in the panel before us. Yeah. It's a pressing matter, and this is going to be really exciting.
Okay, there are many more projects on the platform. If you want to know more about it, look at the tablets over there, or if you're at home, look on our website. But there's one project that's particularly making you shine.
Well, we also have the My Data is Mine award. I feel we cannot talk about consumer empowerment without also talking about consumer data. I mean, data, they have a way of empowering consumers to be more active in this digital society. But also, likewise, consumers need to be empowered to make good use of this data. And we connected the dots already a few years ago in what we call the My Data is Mine approach and strategy. So it has a really nice ring to it, but please allow me just in 1 minute to explain a little bit more. I think no one will disagree data has a lot of value. But they don't just happen to be out there. They come from somewhere, and they belong also to someone, also from consumers. So as a consumer, you also need to be in charge of your data. You should be able to say with who, when, and where you want to share it, and when you want to stop sharing it. And when you do this, you need to get real tangible value in return. And of course, a precondition is to have a really robust, trustworthy framework that protects consumers, but also enables them to take upon this active role. So My Data is Mine, basically, in a nutshell, it's all about empowering consumers to step in, become more active, to really push the boundaries of this data economy so it can deliver better.
One part of it is also an award to young researchers. What is their role in this?
Well, we have the My Data is Mine award, and we really want to encourage young scholars, so people younger than 35, to join us in exploring this bold, innovative, and basically also a very courageous position that is My Data is Mine. We really want to be of support to young thinkers and future leaders that have innovative ideas on data protection, but also very constructive ideas on data exploitation. And we also, every year we have a specific team, but this year it's all about, looking for possibilities to, really unlock this data-driven innovation and take away the barriers so everyone can benefit of it.
Wonderful.
It can be.
Antonio Nikita, you're from the European Commission and former commissioner of the Italian Communication Authority, and I've been told one of the most prominent voices when it comes to the data economy. When we talk about this data economy, what is the role of consumer organizations?
Yes, thank you. First of all, let me say my name is Nikita, not because I want to correct you, but because I'm Italian, not Russian.
Noted.
That said, of course, the data economy is the world in which we are since many years now. What is important now, and I think this initiative comes in a very appropriate way, appropriate moment, is that what we are trying to do now is to define new markets and to define the new rules with the main initiatives at the European level especially, but also we are defining a sort of new awareness on the consumer side, which is, of course, on the one side, the idea that if there is a data economy, there should be sort of economic goods, that is our data on the one side, but on the other is the value that we can create, all of us, in the ecosystem with our data. And this is the very important point, the very difference between just having access to data and having a dialogue over data to understand what we can do as a society, of course as consumers, of course as firms, but what is the added value we can produce for society as a whole. And this is important because so far we had been involved in a sort of great misunderstanding on what data is, because on the one side we think that information is something that is revealed on the market, but on the other, data is also the results of the behavior and of the innovation that is introduced in the market. Lots of data that we have so far are just possible to be there because there has been an innovation that induced some behavior and that induced some information. So there is a sort of co-evolution between access to information, data revealing, rules that are favoring such an environment that should go together. What I think is new now is that this kind of dialogue, but also I have to say what in particular the European Union is trying to do by introducing a set of not only regulation but of co-regulation of ethical principles for artificial intelligence, for instance, etc., is something that is actually designing the data economy in a different way. And I think that next year's will be really of paramount importance in order to understand how can we introduce a sort of cooperative innovation in the entire ecosystems, and also, I mean, let's have a sort of co-evolution between the business model of the platforms on the one side and consumers' needs on the other. So what I did is, what I see is exactly this sort of co-evolutionary model that is shaped, however, by new rules. And I think this is important.
Let's focus a bit more on those rules. Brando Benifei, you're a member of the European Parliament and rapporteur for the AI, the Artificial Intelligence Act. How important is regulation?
Well, the European Union is the first to work on artificial intelligence with such an horizontal regulation. The idea, as Antonio Nicita was saying, is that we put the human dimension at the center, and that innovation should not be pursued at all costs against also protection of fundamental rights. In some contexts, in Europe and in other parts of the world, we have seen episodes where students would be discriminated while being selected for university, workers also, policing happening with discrimination based on skin color, and other issues related to the not so intelligent artificial intelligence in some cases. So we want to be able to give trust, to give certainty to our consumers to the maximum extent possible. So we added, now that we are working on ameliorating the text proposed by the Commission, we put already in our first amendments that we are working on now explicit reference to the respect for the fundamental rights listed in the Article 2 of the EU Treaty, so broadening the range of cases involving the exploitation of a person's vulnerabilities, going beyond age and disability, but touching also on additional sensitive data such as gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, race, religion. We want to prohibit this kind of discriminations and also social scoring, both in public but also in private sector. And also, when we look at real-time biometric recognition for law enforcement objectives, we want to limit as much as possible the exceptions. Personally, I think it should be banned completely. Also, the predictive policing, if we look at the issue of data, we want presumption of innocence to be kept. So it's crucial, and that's also something we have been working on, that all stakeholders, including the business sector, first of all, the SMEs are included in all the processes where there must be decisions regarding governance, regarding enforcement, regarding updating the legislation, but fundamental rights, data minimization, alignment with the GDPR needs to be taken care of. That's what we are doing. But also we want to be sure that we put realistic objectives in. So we are also changing some things in a direction that might be important for the developers. We don't think we can provide absolutely error-free data sets for training. This was an excessive objective. It can be a tendency. This is what we want to pursue, but it cannot be a specific requirement for training AI. So with
it sounds like you have a lot of ambition with this regulation. What we also see is, when we ask our audience, there's also a question we want to ask to you, is what do you see as the key challenge in this consumer protection? There's so much we need to do, and you can choose between privacy and safety, digital skills, sustainability and transparency, and we see our audience overwhelmingly chooses privacy and safety. Almost 50% says that is the key issue. Do you agree?
Well, I think these points that you mentioned, these options are in fact very much interlinked. If we want to keep privacy and safety, we need, as I was saying, to build an overall trust environment that needs to be nurtured by all the aspects that were mentioned.
It's all interconnected. Yes.
Very well
Mr. Albertino, do you agree?
I would say.
It's a lot complicated. It's all interconnected. It all has to do with each other.
They are absolutely all interconnected. I agree with Brando. And I didn't see the score and how they, were
50%.
rated. 50% was for privacy and security. Well, what I think is that privacy and security, in a way, needs transparency. And why? Because if we want to really protect privacy and security, there are several things that needs to be done. Well, first, you need to create or produce products that are privacy first, that are privacy by design, and that are secure because the product needs to be secure. But then the second point is the empowerment of consumers. I mean, we have talked about consumer empowerment since the beginning, and a consumer cannot be empowered if the consumer doesn't know what data a company is treating or what kind of data the company has. So if there is no transparency, it's difficult to have consumer empowerment. So I think that especially the two goes very well together, and is the responsibility, again, joint responsibility to show and explain what data a company has, but then provide tools to protect users.
Mr. Nichita, are we able to provide this transparency and training not only to the average consumer, but also to the most vulnerable ones?
Yes, and indeed, I would say that privacy and transparency, privacy and security are coming from the past somehow. The future, I think, is much more transparency and sustainability. Because transparency means also be aware of what we have. I mean, when we are talking about data, sometimes, and also when we refer to our personal data, we think that this notion of data is something already given, exogenous, that is there, which is not. We need to know what data is, what is the information we may produce, and this has to do with transparencies, which means also learning process, okay? And we need to have a transparent world because we need to learn about what is the value of the information, how we have to use information. And these will help to create sustainable projects, sustainable models, and sustainable innovation.
Ms. Bruggeman, is
and sustainable, by design, and also sustainability in terms of the use of the information that we already have in the most intelligent way in order to reach sustainability outcomes.
Ms. Bruggeman, do you agree with the ranking we just saw, that privacy and safety is on top and then the other ones follow? And is this also really core competence of consumer organizations, or is this more the competence of regulators? You just do the transparency. Yeah, it's going to come on. Yeah.
It's difficult to have a pick, so if you would have asked me, it would have been difficult. For me, it's not about one or the other, it's really about and it's indeed about privacy and about security, because consumers need to know that at a certain level they're protected by default. So, but it's also about transparency, and as you said, knowing transparency also implies that you're more aware of your power, that you have a role to play as a consumer in this ecosystem, and you have a role to play also to boost sustainability. So for me, actually, they're all very much interconnected, and there's a common denominator between them, and it's just trust.
And does that make, if you see that they're all connected, does it make your work easier or even harder?
My work as a consumer organization is never easy.
Okay,
no, and it's always challenging, but it makes it also very exciting. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot more to come with these other challenges. May I thank you very much. A warm applause to our speakers: Giorgia Albertino, Els Bruggeman, Antonio Nichita, and Brando Benefei joining us remotely. Thank you so much. A lot, empowerment of consumers through education, informing them, enabling them to make informed choices is key. So what is the role how can we empower consumers to this, and what is the role of education, academia, and that? For that, we have our final panel with Elisa Giomi, Oreste Policino, and Soledad Atienza, I have to say it correctly. Please join us on stage also, Mr. Policino. Yeah, Mr. Policino is joining us remotely. You're a professor of constitutional law and internet law at Bocconi University and co-founder and partner of Digital Media Laws. We have been informed you have to teach a class very shortly, so you can't join us probably for the whole duration of the panel, but we just heard how important education is. We can't have your students wait, so feel free to drop out anytime you have to run to your students. When we asked who would like to have the first Consumer Leadership Academy, you raised your hand, and Bocconi University will host the first edition this year. What can we expect from the Academy? We cannot hear you here in the audience.
I hope now it's better. And thank you very much for the question. And first of all, to bear with me in terms of not making waiting my students. And you exactly, in a way, pointed out the right issue. Education is at the center of a much more comprehensive project. And if you want, the Consumer Leadership Academy is in a way found, the first year is privileged, in a way natural basis in Bocconi School of Management, a postgraduate school that in a way has in its DNA teaching a relationship with companies, first of all, and then with consumers. So if you ask me which should be the DNA of this academy, I would say that the focus will be on the major policy debates that are basically shaping the future of consumerism. We heard about sustainability, but what we would like to do is to go beyond the labels of sustainability as a roadstar. But what is behind sustainability? How is possible to basically have a more closer connection between industry and consumer organization, which is the role of teaching, which is the role of research. These are the questions in the way they should be questioned. In the light, if I may, and I will still just 3 minutes maybe because I will not be able to participate in the second round, because we are in a way facing new challenge that should be in a way very clearly identified from an academic and from policy making point of view. The most important challenge has been repeated many times today, that we are in a very important, crucial, unique transition phase. And you know very well what I mean. At European level, we have rules that regulates the market, digital market, that are not exactly new, and obsolete would be an euphemism, and we have a digital laboratory now that should put as its center the user, the consumer, and the human being. This is the real challenge today. Try to let emerge the user and the consumer as the center of this constellation. And I think it's very important in relation to, again, to the cooperation between consumer organization and the industry. Then if you ask me, you didn't, but if you'd have asked me which will be the pillars of this academy, then I can say for sure that thanks to the great cooperation of international colleagues, we will hear then the rector of this very important Spanish university, and clear the friends and esteemed colleagues, Professor Giomi. What is very important is, first of all, a combination from methodology point of view between the legal and the economic issues. This is why Bocconi is the perfect place. And then there will be the perspectives related to the unfamous Digital Service Act, which will be the consumer's perspective on this. And finally, what we will try to see is the transnational enforcement of consumer rights, because which is the risk? The risk is that the consumer building is a fortress, very strong inside, but without the interconnecting bridge that are very important in a global digital dimension. And thank you very much for this.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And well, I would like to join as well. In June it's going to happen. People can still apply. We're going to say how they can do it. Thank you so much and good luck teaching your class. Yeah, Soledad Atienza, you are the Dean of the IE Law School in Madrid, and you're the organizer of the 2023 edition. What we heard Mr. Policino say a lot is remove barriers between academic fields of research, between organizations, and between countries. Does it appeal to you as well?
Sure. I believe there are three main items that make this academy unique. One of them is the composition of the academy, coming from the industry, civil sector, consumers associations, and academic institutions. This builds really a unique composition for a training academy. And this is going to allow us work in two different lines. In the terms of research, we can do applied research. So research that is done through academics, very deep and thorough research, with the intention of applying these for real problems, for real citizens, for the real market. And at the same time, we can do training with real-life impact. We can do training that is going to have a direct impact in society. Academics can do this training when they work together with other kind of institutions, such as is happening here. Also, the international approach, I believe, is unique. Consumers do not acquire goods and services locally anymore. This needs to be thought and debated from an international perspective. But currently, many of the academic institutions that teach law and that train lawyers or that debate about or research about regulation do it on a local-only basis. So the international approach here is also very unique. And lastly, the multidisciplinarity. As Professor Oreste was saying, we're going to be debating, teaching, and doing research in law, regulation, in economics, and also in technology. So this brings us again to a very unique way of teaching.
Sounds wonderful. Well, we're going to talk more about the role of education, but first, Elisa Giomi, you're associate professor at Roma Tre University, where you teach media and communication, and you're commissioned at AGCOM, the Italian Independent Regulatory Authority of Communications. Yeah, what does consumer empowerment mean in the context of the digital ecosystem, and also how can you as a commission promote that?
Well, many things have been said so far. I'd like to call upon what Oreste was saying, and also Soledad, about the importance of interdisciplinarity. The legal perspective, the economic perspective, the technological perspective have been mentioned, and I feel like I can add also the socio-cultural perspective, because I am a media studies scholar. And reflecting upon your interesting question, what I would like to underline is that there is a specificity connected to the goods consumed by the consumers we're talking about when referring to the media and communication realm. Maybe it sounds obvious to be taken for granted, but I do feel like underlining that the goods we're talking about should be handled very carefully. They are different from other goods being sold in other markets, like, I don't know, furniture or shoes. We're talking about symbolic goods. This is what we talk them in media scholar literature, referring to the very peculiar role played by the media and the communication industry, which is meaning making. It is through the content and representations and narratives of the media that we come to know the world outside, and we do elaborate the meaning of this world and our position in it. So, in a nutshell, when talking about consumer protection, we're talking about citizen protection. I do not think that, okay, the two concepts overlap, but they should be kept separated. If this ability of meaning-making has always been attributed to the media, even when they were analogic, it is clearly stronger nowadays with the rise of digital platforms. As we know, and it is my conclusion, there is not a single dimension of individual and collective life which is not mediated by the services offered by online platforms. We use them in the economic, in the work, in the educational, in the political realm. So when protecting consumer, we are protecting citizens. And if I have to reflect upon what the role of independent national regulatory authority, I have the feeling that we are still working more on the consumer side, protecting someone who is involved in economic transaction rather than a citizen, because everything is so new. But this is the framework we should bear in mind when talking about this.
If I go buy a pair of shoes, I feel like a consumer. I compare some shoes and I make a deal with the seller, and if I'm satisfied, I do it, and if not, I file a complaint. But when digital services, I feel like a citizen. I have the right to, I don't even know that I'm a consumer. I pay with data, probably. But it could also mean that from a regulatory aspect, less dialogue, less talking, regulation, that's going to protect everybody, also the most vulnerable people.
Yes, let me give you an example. Agicom, as well as many other independent regulatory authority, has recently been entrusted new powers and competencies as a result of the implementation of the so-called Audiovisual Media Directive, an important European directive, which in Italy, for example, has been implemented into a new sectoral law. Audiovisual law, the so-called TUSMA for those who are Italian. Now, there is a very important challenge in my view, which is strictly connected to what I was saying about this symbolic value of the goods being considered. We are required to develop policies in the form of co-regulation. This was said also in the previous panels. Policies meant to moderate some content. Of course, the content which are lawful are paradoxically less controversial, less critical, because they are more clearly defined. But there is a very huge gray area comprising of contents which are lawful but still harmful, inappropriate, toxic, we say in media studies, whose definition is a very complex task, and in my view requires a sort of general intellect to be mobilized. This is precisely the point where I see the most important value and contribution brought up by the dialogue which we have been referring to since the start of this afternoon.
Well, a lot coming. Let's talk a little bit more about the role of education and academia to empower consumers. We ask to you, the people at home, also the people here in the audience, take your phone, and we ask you, what could education and academia do to empower consumers? And they have to choose from four very good things. One could be campaigns, educational campaigns. One could be collaboration with different market players, or develop ad hoc trainings, or develop tools or apps where that can help you learn. Yeah, educational we get the answers are coming in now. I hope we can also get them on screen. But educational campaigns, 4 out of 10 of our viewers says educational campaigns. That is the role of academia and education. Do you agree?
I agree, but I would add something else. I agree, education is relevant, and this Consumer Leadership Academy is a fantastic example of this. This will allow academics to work together with civil society and with the industry. But education and training is not enough. Research is also necessary, and again, there is a part of this academy that will focus on research, and this shows how the intention of the academy is to have a profound and long-term dialogue on consumers' rights. And I also believe that this is the right moment to launch such a project, because it is the transformation to this digital society that calls now for a debate, for training, and for research in the area of consumers' rights. The way consumers acquire products and services is changing right now, and this is what calls for this analysis, this research, and this training. And just to share some examples of two services that are changing and that are now being acquired and offered online are legal services and education. And these are two very relevant services providers that have an impact on the long term in society.
Yeah. Commissioner, academia can be very abstract and long term and very fundamental. Are you equipped enough to make the transition to the real world, to have real impact on the ground and to every consumer?
I think that intervening in the real world and shaping public policy is a very important challenge and a very valuable chance for thinkers and scholars to share their knowledge. There is a practical issue that, in my opinion, represents a sort of meeting point of these two different approaches, which I feel I should encourage in my role as a commissioner. This concerns the Italian environment, but I know that Ofcom and the Conseil supérieur de l'audiovisuel, which are the national regulatory authority in the UK and France, have a similar experience. The most part of the initiatives that we have been taking as AGICOM to ensure consumer protection basically concern equal and transparent access to the network, technological neutrality, and issues relating to the contractual aspects. There is something people could do, which is reporting on media content and representation that they feel are inappropriate, because it is precisely in so doing that people critically engage with media content, get empowered because they are brought to critically analyze and read the content of media, and they bring up a very important contribution to this general process which has to involve industry representative, policymakers in identifying inappropriate content, which is a very important task. I stress it.
We have about 2 minutes left for a few. I want to take a few comments or questions from the audience. One I see is, how does the digital transformation change the sensibility of consumers? This is almost a philosophical question, but does any of you dare to answer this? Do you have an idea about it?
How does it change the sensibility for consumers? Well, the opportunities as well as the risks for consumers are larger on a digital environment. The information, the opportunities for the access to information can be more limited, but again, we have the opportunity to be more transparent also on a digital environment. Not always the situation, but there are opportunities for more transparency in a digital environment, and there are more opportunities to make a choice.
Okay. One other question coming in is, are there considerations regarding consuming and impact on the environment? So is environment part of the research projects that we have, and maybe on regulation?
Yes, absolutely. We are very much, as I was mentioning, the relevant issue about research here is doing applied research for a digital environment. Research that will be looking at real data about consumers' rights on a digital environment.
Okay, well, there is so much more we can discuss, but online consumers shouldn't consume more than 1.5 hours online, and also the temperature here is go way above citizens' rights. So we have to close it up. May I thank you very much for participating in this panel, and good luck with organizing the Academy 2023, and also both your academic and regulatory work. Thank you so much. A big round of applause for Lisa Jomi and Soledad Atienza. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to wrap up this kick-off meeting of the Consumer Empowerment Project. If you would like to know more about what the project is, how it works, how you can be part of it, go to our website or go to the panels here in the back of the room. Everything is explained on this, and also the projects that are part of it. Two very important parts of it: the My Data is Mine initiative, as was just said by Els Bruggeman. The call for papers has been opened, so if you're a young researcher, go to it, click on it, and apply for it today. And if you thought, wow, going to Italy in June for a nice summer academia, I would like to be part of this nice intercorporational academic project, go to the website and apply for the June Academy. If you have new ideas, if you're missing a project, if you're missing an initiative, submit it through the website. There is still room to add on this. And most importantly, if you want to be one of the partner organizations in this project, apply, send them a message, explain what you want to do, why you want to do it, because this is not just a project of 2 organizations, this is a project founded by 2 organizations, but hopefully the project of many organizations representing as many consumers and, as we heard, citizens as we can. Thank you so much for watching if you're at home, and thank you for staying with us if you were here, and I want you a wonderful afternoon.